Good evening, students. You are welcome to today's session. Audible, please. Students, can you hear me? Good evening, students. Am I audible?
Good evening, sir.
Yes. Can somebody confirm if my voice is audible or not, please?
Yes, sir. Your voice is audible and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. So, once again, good evening and welcome to session number 3 of this course. And today, we'll be looking at the basic components of human-computer interaction. Before we begin, I really need to express my disappointment over how people don't show up in class on time. As you can see, we have just 6 or 5, including myself, making 6 participants in today's session, which is very, very unfortunate. But anyway, my own is just to come and deliver. Your own is to take. So I've done my part, and by ethics, I shouldn't be the one to come and wait. Perhaps you should be the one waiting.
But here I am telling you that it is time for class. It's so unfortunate. I hope that the rest will make amends to this behavior or attitude. So we agreed on the last class that we'll be sharing our screen throughout the lecture so that you guys can also go through what I'm going through as well. So I intend to do so today by sharing the course material on my screen. Good evening. Good evening. Go ahead. Good evening. Go ahead. Somebody wanted to talk? Go ahead, please. Somebody was talking. Can you please clarify? Are we having a network problem? Students, are we having an issue?
So we can hear you clearly. I guess the person that spoke out network issue.
Okay. So today, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at the basic components of human-computer interaction. So when we are looking at computer-human interaction, we say that computer-human interaction consists of several components. And these components are made up of, number one, what we call the interaction models. We have the interaction models. That is the first component. Number two, we have what we call ergonomics. And we're going to discuss that in a much broader details. Then number three, we have the interaction style. And then number four, we have the idea of context. So in total, we have 4 components of human-computer interaction, starting with interaction models, ergonomics, interaction styles, and context. So these components all together determine how users communicate with the computer system. This is what all of them do to put them together. And this components, I think, are what we call today as the backbone of human-computer interaction. And in this session, I guess we'll be taking them one after the other to elaborate on each and every one of them, their contribution, and how they help in shaping human-computer interaction. So quickly, let me start with the first one, which is the interaction model. Now, in summary, we can say that the interaction model describes communication between users and systems, meaning that these are models that define or that set rules for how communication takes place between users and their computers. They also explain how users form a goal, perform action, as well as receive feedbacks from their system. This is what they do. Now, the ergonomics, what they do is they describe the physical interaction between users and computers, which means it focuses on comfort, safety, and efficiency when users interact with computers. Now, why do we care about comfort, safety, and efficiency? These are very important because even from the way we sit on our table and chair when using our systems can actually affect our health. And this is why today, if some of you who are using iPhone can check your iPhone settings, you realize that iPhone has a function that enables the user to control how much vision they take into their eyes and how close they stick to their phone when using the phone. Now, according to the iPhone principle, or according to the iPhone ergonomics property, it kind of restricts individuals from using their phone more than at least, let me see, more than 4 or 5 meters away from their own eyes, which is very, very safe and considered comfortable. Now, taking the phone closer to your eyes make your eyes vulnerable, and you can easily face eye problems. So for that, ergonomics describes that physical interaction between the user and the device, or between the user and the computer. Now, moving forward, let's talk about the style. We mentioned that interaction style defines user-system dialogue, meaning how user and system communicate. What is the language a user uses when communicating with the system? This is what interaction style is all about. And this includes using command line utilities. We have the command prompt. We also have the menus on our mobile phones, the menus on our systems. We have pointers. We have indicators. We have interface, and so on and so forth. All these can be considered as interaction styles, also known as the language of communication between a user and a system. And then finally, we'll talk about context. Now, context considers social and organizational environment, which includes the workspace, the culture, user motivation, and other things that may affect interaction. So when dealing with a system, sometimes context is very important. Now, workplace is a factor that we cannot overlook, because most of the time people use devices, especially computers, at workplace. Now, the culture itself affects our use of devices, motivation as well. Everybody has a motivation behind why they use certain applications or certain tools on their systems. So this is just a summary of these components. Now, let's look into the components, looking at them from a very deeper perspective. Okay, starting with the first one, which is 2 of 1. Okay, we're going to start with 2 of 1, which is the interaction model. Now, for your information, I'm not going to read out this material. All I have to do is to summarize the material, to pick up some important points that will make you understand the main idea or the central message in this note. So we are starting with the first one. Now, we mentioned that the interaction model comprises of how user interacts with the system. Okay. Now, in trying to dictate how a user interacts with the system, the interaction model actually comes with something we call the terms of interaction. Now, when we say terms of interaction, you can call them as rules of interaction or conditions of interaction. Now, these conditions are divided into 3. We have domain, we have goal, and we have task. Now, what is the role of domain here? Now, domain usually is the area of work under which a particular thing is being performed, or is the area of work under the study. And they have given an example with graphics design. So this domain could be anywhere. The domain could be cybersecurity. The domain could be data analysis. The domain could be web development. It could be anything. Okay, so that is one term of condition, domain, the area of work being performed, word processing, databases, and so on and so forth. Now, number two term of interaction is goal. Now, what is goal? Goal is what you want to achieve. Goal is what you want to achieve. For example, let's stick with the example of the graphics design. Now, somebody may say that the goal of using this domain, which is graphic design, is to create a red triangle or to create a velvet flower. That is the aim of this, or that is the goal of this interaction. Okay. Now, number 3 is the task. Now, what is the task? Task concerns how you go about doing things, meaning that you can say it is the step-by-steps requirements for achieving a particular goal. For example, before creating a red triangle or before creating a red velvet, we need to pick up a drawing tool, choose a color, choose certain effects in order to achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve. So when dealing with interaction models, some of the things we look at are the terms of interaction, which are the laws or conditions that define how the interaction should take place. We say that this is achieved using domain, goal, and task. And we've explained each and every one of them. Now, let's start with the first model. And by the way, when we say model in any scenario, we're talking about a large number of benchmarks or perhaps blueprints for achieving one thing or another. And today, under this topic, we'll be looking at 2 particular models. And the first model we'll be looking at is what we call the Donald-Normans model. Now, what is this model about? Now, this is a model that explains the interaction between a user and a computer using 7 stages. Now, what are these stages? The first stage is that user must establish the goal. For user to be able to interact with the system, they have to first of all establish the goal. Now, if we put this to practice, we can say that for somebody to be admitted into a university, he or she must have that as their goal. Maybe in the future they want to do this or that. They want to become an engineer, or they want to become a pilot or an architect. So for somebody to achieve that, they need to establish the goal for achieving that particular profession. Number two, the user must formulate their intention. Now, how do you formulate your intention? You formulate your intention by taking the necessary steps for achieving that particular goal, starting with going through primary school, then secondary school, writing WIMP and NEPO, and then JAM, and then applying through the university. This is example in real life. But when we're talking about computer, we can say that how you intend to design a particular triangle gives you an idea about the formulated intention. Now, number three, we have what we call the user specifies action at interface. Now, this includes the kind of commands or the kind of tasks you execute on a particular interface for the action to be executed. And number four, user executes actions, which means now we're talking about the action being executed. And number five, we have the user perceived. So the user perceives the system state. Now, what do we mean by system state? Now, every system has what we call a system state. Some systems are considered idle, some are considered active, some are considered passive, some are considered dead. So depending on the situation, we can say that the user must be able to perceive the system's state. What is the state of the system during the time of action? Is the system on? Is the system off? Is the system idle? Is the system busy? And so on and so forth. And number six, user interprets the system state. When a system responds to me by indicating an error message, I should be able to decode, or I should be able to interpret that error message in order to understand the state of the system. Then we have the last one, which is user evaluates the system state with respect to goal. Now, let me give you an example with this. Assuming I want to run an AI, artificial intelligence model on my system. Now, everybody who is into AI knows that normal computers cannot run AI. We need computers that are powered with GPUs. These are graphical cards that enable the system to support AI environment as well as AI languages. This is very important. Now, whenever I try to run a program that supports AI, and when the system does not accept it, in that case, we can say that user evaluates the system state in terms of the goal. It means the system cannot achieve my goal for me. Now, my ability to evaluate that system's result or that system's state is what makes it the case in our situation. So according to this Norman's model, it concentrates on users' view of the interface, execution, and evaluation loop. Now look at this diagram. Now in this diagram, what we are trying to say is that each time a goal is provided to the system, we receive a feedback and we determine whether the system can be able to achieve our goal. And that evaluation process and execution process is what we call a continuous loop, something that happens endlessly. So this is what this is all about. Now, moving forward. Now, looking at the Donald's Norman model, we can see that this model can be applied to what is known as goal of execution. Now, what is goal of execution? Goal of execution is that which evaluates the user's formulation of action where action are allowed by the system. In contrast, we can say that goal of evaluation is when users' expectations of changed system state represent the actual presentation of this system. It also indicates that interaction could have some human error, which may be in form of slip or maybe in form of mistakes. So these slips or mistakes may include lack of understanding of the system and goals, incorrect formulation of action, incorrect actions, mistakes of not even having the right goal. This could all be possible. So what goal of execution is trying to state is that in trying to achieve our goals, sometimes we may end up having situations. So this situation could be difference between system output and users understanding. Now, what does that mean? Now, sometimes the system may give a feedback which the user does not understand. Or sometimes we misinterpret
our goals, and then the system give us a different result. Okay, so normally it occurs when user cannot understand the feedback given by the system. Now, I've given you an example with something earlier, and I said sometimes we can get what we call an error message. For example, some of you may have encountered this once or twice. You are using a system and suddenly you see a blue screen. Now, what is blue screen representing here? Blue screens are a sign indicating that your memory is having issue, or your hard disk dying, or there are some bad sectors on your hard disk. So this is telling you that you should repair yourself. Now, these errors sometimes are necessary. These errors, these slips, these mistakes. Now, some of these slips could mean somebody clicking the wrong button. Sometimes intentional. You try to do something and you ended up doing something else. Sometimes mistakes could come from coding. You want to code something, but you mistakenly written a different code or a line of code, and then it leads to an error. Now, to avoid these human errors, a new model emerged. This model is known as the About and Build framework. Now, this framework is adopted as an extension of the Norman's model. And when we say an adoption, Norman's model may have encountered some disadvantages or some issues. And for that, an extension of the model was proposed, and it is known as About and Build framework. Now, this framework, as mentioned earlier, is an extension of the Norman's model, and it comes in 4 parts. Number 1, it has the user, then it has the input, then it has the system, and then the output. So while each framework has its own unique language, if interaction is the translation between languages, and if there are problems in interaction, then there will be problems in translation as well. This is what this framework is trying to justify. Now, in addition, we can say that the user's intention could be translated into actions at the interface, then translated into alterations of state, then reflected in the output display system, or interpreted by user himself. So in general, we can say that the framework is trying to clarify what the previous model cannot actually achieve. And in trying to do so, we can say that it makes the interaction much better and much understandable by focusing on the user, the input, the system, and the output to make things much easier. So that is what the first model is and the second model are all about. And by the way, they are under the interaction models. Now we are moving to the next segment of the component, which is the ergonomics. Now, we mentioned that ergonomics is the study of physical interaction between users and computers. Now, this considers both physical aspect of interfaces and the industrial interface. So, as mentioned again, ergonomics is the study of the physical characteristics of interaction. It is also human factor. Okay, so ergonomics is good at defining standards, guidelines for constraining the way we design certain aspect of system. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that it focuses on four things. That is comfort, safety, efficiency, and health. Now, let's look at the examples of ergonomics as given in the note. Number one, arrangement of controls and displays such as controls grouped according to functions, frequency, and sequence of use. Now, when we are designing a system, I will give you an example with, let's say, let me open my browser a little bit. Let's see if we can achieve that example here. Now let's go to the settings of my browser. Now you see the first thing according to ergonomics says that arrangement of controls and displays such as the controls grouped according to function, frequency, and sequence of use. Now, what does this mean? Now, if we look at the arrangement of how my settings are arranged here, you realize that each function, for example, let me list out the function. We have basics, we have passwords and autofills, we have advanced. Now, anything related to passwords and autofills are put together in the same line. Why? For comfort and for ease of use, as simple as that. Rather than dispersing them into various places, which in the end will cause more problems to me, such as inability to identify certain functions because they are not put together in one place. Now, if I wake up from sleep and you ask me to tell you what are the menus on Microsoft Office, and I should tell you that each group of functions are grouped together, what is the function of each group? I will tell you that off heart, because I know by virtue of how I use it and by virtue of how Microsoft Office is designed, when I click on insert, I see options or functions that only insert something to my page. For example, headers and footers, comments, symbols, emojis, table of contents, drawing, page breaks, and so on and so forth. Now, this is an example of the first rule. Now, the second rule says surrounding environments, such as the sitting arrangement, adaptable to cope with all sizes of users, health issues such as physical positions, environmental conditions such as temperature and humidity, light and noise. Now, when designing a system, we have to consider people at heart. We have to consider the level of we have to consider the health condition of people. Not everybody can use a system for 10 hours. Not everybody can actually accommodate themselves in a position or in a certain condition, temperature, and so on and so forth. So we put that at the back of our mind. So this is why ergonomics studies the physical characteristics of interaction, which includes our surrounding as well. And number three, use of colors, such as the use of red for warning, green for okay, and awareness of color blindness. Now, people have issue with what we call short-sightedness, long-sightedness, astigmatism, and so on. A lot of eye conditions are there. Now, there are people who even say that whenever you see red in any situation, red symbolizes danger or red symbolizes warning. It's a warning sign. But whenever you see green, green always means go. It means great. It means okay. It means all. So this is how ergonomics understands this interaction between human beings and computers. Now, moving forward. Now, let's look at common interaction styles. So we've just completed our what should I call it? First, we started with we started with interaction models. We finished with interaction models. We went through, and now moving into interaction styles. Now, when talking about interaction styles define how to communicate with computers. And this includes the following. Number one, we have the command line interface, how the communication takes place between a user with a command line interface. Everybody knows the command line interface here, even if you don't know. But the command line interface looks like this, CMD. Command line interface. I'm very sure you must have come across something like this on your system, even if not on your system, but maybe on somebody's system. So this is what we call the command prompt, and this is the command line interface. In our last class, I mentioned how in the past we used to use the command line interface to instruct the system, to even use it as our Microsoft Office before the advent of Microsoft Office. And the command line interface is the backbone or is the root of the system, because it allows the system to, it allows the user to manage the system from the background, from the root, okay, from the root. Why do we say from the root? Because there are certain interactions that we cannot do with the graphical user interface. How I'm using my laptop right now, I have run some commands that will show you that there are things we cannot use using our graphical user interface. We have to use the command utility in order to achieve that. Now, moving forward. It shocked me that I haven't had any voice since, and that we're still 6 in number in the class. Yeah, I know you are with me, but you are not talking. Nobody stopped me to ask a question or to ask me for permission to go and drink water.
I was waiting for you to complete the explanation of what you were doing.
No problem. Let me complete, please. Just jot down your question, okay? Yes. So the first one is the command line interface, which we've just discussed. Then the second one is the menu. What is the menu? The menu, all these things on my PDF reader, they are the menu. We have the edit PDF, we have the comment, we have the highlight. You know, anything I touch here is just considered as a menu. So all these are menus. We use these menus for communication. I want to do something right now. I'm just touching the menu. Let me touch this. These are all menus. We call them menu. Any command I want to give, I just touch any one of this. So we're actually using menus for communication. Number 3, we are using natural language, which we mentioned in our last class. And we say that with natural language, we use speech recognition to speak to the system, and then the system converts the speech into a digital form so that it can be translated to the language a computer can actually understand. A computer understand our English speech. They don't even recognize anything we say. It is through the use of speech recognition that our systems are able to understand whatever we say. Now, number 4, we have what we call query interface. Now, query interface comprises of question and answer interfaces in which user is led through interaction via a series of questions. Take ChatGPT, for example. Sometimes we ask ChatGPT for something and it replies back. That act of asking question is what we refer to as query. We also have a special type of query language which we call the SQL, that is SQL language, the SQL. So the SQL allow us to, sorry, by the way, SQL means structured query language, okay? Now it allows us to retrieve information from our databases. Databases are very complex and we can't just fetch information by just saying, open, click, blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't happen like that. In a query environment, we have to use the language of query or syntax of query to seek information. Another way we communicate with our systems is through form fields and spreadsheets. Even if you have not created a form before, but I'm sure you must have filled one. Because nowadays, somebody can create a questionnaire. And through this questionnaire, they can ask a lot of questions and people can actually respond to the question. Now, sometimes even our computers use this process of form field. Now, take for instance, if I want to sign up a new Google account, for example. Now, when I sign for a new Google account, let me switch my screen to desktop. Now, when I click on create Gmail account, just have a look. Now, the account, and it's going to give me a series of to answer. Now, oh my God, this is serious. Let's go down this lane. Anyway, I believe each and every one of you have opened a Gmail account once or twice in your lifetime. So that form that we fill our name, our information, our gender, our phone number, our password is what we call form fields. Okay. So this is also another way of communicating with the system. We give the system what we want the system to understand and what we want the system to open. Now, the next one is called the WIMP interface. Now, the WIMP interface, normally the word WIMP is a short form for Windows, icon, menus, and pointers. Windows, icons, menus, and pointers. This is a representation of tools, okay, that help in kind of in ensuring that humans can interact with their systems adequately. For example, when the Windows came, before the advent of the Windows, let me say this, before the advent of the Windows, I told you earlier that interaction was fully using the command line utility. Now, in those days, computers were not meant for non-technical people because they were highly sophisticated and technical. Somebody needs to be good at coding before they can be able to run a computer. Later on, the Windows came. The Windows gave us what we call the operating system, which allows us to manage the systems or communicate with the systems in a much understandable way. Initially, there was no such environment that you just press on the start button and it will show you then click on this, it opened this. It wasn't like that before. Now the Windows came with a number of features, including icons. And we use these icons for identifying things, for locating files and folders, for giving instructions. Then it also came with the menu. The menu enabled us to control or to navigate through the system or the computers. Through the menus, we are able to know when we click on file, new file, it is going to create a new file. When we click on save, it's going to save. When we click on rename, it is going to rename. When we click on share, it is going to share something. Now, the menu has brought so much interesting ideas to our modern day computers. Now we also have the pointers, which are the mouse. You have the mouse, you have the joysticks, you have the polar mouse, said correctly. And then, of course, when we use our hands to play around on the screen, we're also using a pointer. Now, in some other cases, there may be buttons, there may be toolbars, there may be palettes and dialog boxes. All these have constituted what we call today as WIMP interface, that is Windows icon, menus, and pointers. So, the next on the list, I believe, is the, just give me a minute. So the next topic is the topic on the three-dimensional interface. Now, what is a three-dimensional interface? A three-dimensional interface, as we all know, is a type of interface that creates a 3D workspace that allow us to use systems that can view objects from three different angles. Now, when we say three different angles, it means that we can see at least the left, the right, and the back, or probably the top. So that is called a three-dimensional object. So the role of three-dimensional interface is that it provides, or it gives us the it gives rise to what we call today as virtual reality or virtual reality interaction. Now, in our last class, we talked about virtual reality, and I mentioned that virtual reality allow us to kind of use a vacuum space to represent objects. Let's see if we can have virtual reality example, virtual reality videos. Let's see if we can be able to display one. Very good. Now, these children, just watch. Place, but they are given a kind of reality of something that make them think they are in a particular place at a particular time. Let's look at this one again. This is all virtual reality, okay? Yes, none of this is real. None of this is real. They are all virtual reality. So virtual reality is another technological advancement that create a more better interaction between users and computers. Because with virtual reality, we are seeing the reality of things in a much closer dimensional space. So this is why we call it virtual reality. So these virtual realities can be seen in video games, they can be seen in simulation, they can be seen in active environments. And it gives us a very realistic interaction experience with our devices. It gives us a better visualization of whatever object is being produced. But nevertheless, it has its own disadvantages. Some people believe that it can cause serious mental issues to people, especially users of underage. And this is why I have been to a cinema in a foreign country. I've been to a country where I used to go to the cinema to watch movies. And there was this virtual reality cinema that they will always tell you that kids are not allowed, because you will see a bullet flying from somebody's gun, passing through your ears, or passing in between you and your friend, the person sitting next to you. Or you see somebody being punched, and then you see the hand swinging to your face. So these are some of the beauties of virtual reality, but the disadvantage is that it has serious repercussions on the brain and on the thinking faculty. Now, as the last topic of this session, which is context. We mentioned that context is one of the components of human-computer interaction. We also mentioned that sometimes our interaction can be affected by our environment. And context here includes physical context, technical context, organizational context, and social context. Now, let's read a little bit of these paragraphs. These issues and concerns involve all possible interactions between a user and a system during its life cycle, including the development stage, use in context, the impact of such use on individuals, organizations, societies, and future system development. Now, at this context one by one, starting with physical context. Now, when we look at physical context, it signifies the physical location of a system. A physical location of a system. It also signifies the lighting condition of a particular environment, noise level of that environment, as well as space availability. All these can be affected physically. Now, imagine an ATM machine inside a bank versus an ATM machine on the street. Now, we're talking about physical space here. If they can install ATM machine inside the bank, then why create, pardon? Then?
Your screen is not visible.
Repeat that again. I think you are the only one. Let's hear from the others. Can you see my screen, students?
No, sir.
No, sir. You can't see your screen.
You can't see my screen. Okay. Let me see what I can do. Now, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can see your desktop.
Yes. So we're talking about physical context, and I was giving an example with the ATM machine. ATM machine inside the bank versus ATM machine outside the street. As a user, I will prefer an ATM machine outside the street because nobody wants to go to the bank unless it is necessary. Physical context matters a lot in this situation. Putting the ATM machine outside the inside the bank. Now, that is one example of context, which is physical context. Now, when dealing with technical context, we're looking at hardware use, software platform, network availability, screen difference between a mobile device screen and a desktop computer screen, which one gives you a better visibility, a better resolution of your objects? Definitely the desktop system. So you see another perspective of the technical context. Now, the next context is the organizational context. Now, the organizational context includes company policies, work procedures, user roles, and management support. Now, there are organizations that you cannot use social media platforms when you are within the organization. And the reason is because the company policy has stated that nobody should use Facebook during working hours. So for that, we can say that organizational context may be affected by user roles or by management support. Sometimes there are certain roles that if you assume a role within an organization, there are things you cannot do and there are things you can do. Somebody can only do certain things when they reach a particular limit or role, and that is the reality. Now, another example of context is the social and cultural context, where we always look at language differences, user expectations, and social environment. Now, imagine creating an e-commerce website. When I say an e-commerce website, I'm referring to a website that sell items. Now, let's take Nigeria, for instance. According to research, Nigerians have over 350 languages, 350 indigenous languages in Nigeria. Although the prominent languages are three: Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. These are the three prominent languages. They have the largest number of speakers in Nigeria. Now, imagine that you create an e-commerce website that can support these three languages, or even 5 languages, or even 10 languages. It will create a very significant impact website and the business it represents. Text matters in the field of human-computer interaction, because sometimes we need to have all this at the back of our when designing and developing our system. So, in summary, now that we have come to the end of this study section, we can say that in summary, we discuss the basic component of human-computer interaction, which includes interaction models, ergonomics, interaction styles, and then, of course, context, where we look at social context, technical context, physical context, and whatnot. So this today's interaction. I hope there are contributions. If there are any, please kindly present them to us. Thank you very much for listening.
Hello, sir.
Yes, who is speaking?
So my question is actually based on when you were explaining the command prompt rather.
Oh. Yes.
Yeah, we think it's more like the command line is strictly for people that are, like, understand it or so. So I was saying, actually, when I learn about command line, all those opening folder, new, all those things, I learn it through command line. So later, it's something that just using manually, it became like a stress to me.
See. So what is the question here, or what is the contribution?
Yeah, you were explaining that command line was strictly for people that understand that like techies before.
Okay. Well, to be honest with you, I don't know when you started using systems, but I think I've started using computers as early as 98, and I can tell you, could not understand those command line interfaces, unless somebody has to sit down and learn it proficiently before they can be able to use it. And even today, now, I must say you are lucky. You are very lucky that you learned this on your own and that you were able to create folders and files using the command line. But trust me, even among your colleagues here, not many of them have even used it or even heard of it before today. So still, I think it's not something that people take for granted, and it's not something that is very commonly used. People are still lagging behind in the area of scripting and command line utilities. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much. Any other person, please? Any other person? So if there are no questions, let me read out the next topic we are going to cover in our next session. And by the way, the other day I posted the link to where the video was posted so that you can easily access it in different qualities. You know, when you're using something on YouTube, you can be able to reduce the quality of the video so that it does not consume much data. Some of you, I know, you may not be able to afford that much package of data. So probably it is easier for you to access it on YouTube. So this is why I put everything on YouTube. Now, in the next session, which is going to be session 4, we are going to look at the critical evaluation of computer-based technology, where we'll be looking at multisensory systems, multimodals and multimedia systems, speeches, problems in speech recognition, speech-related human interaction technologies, sound recognition and gestures, devices, and so on and so forth. So please try to go through them. And I'm going to download this video as well. I've recorded this session and I'm going to share in the group like the other one. If you have more questions, you can ask in the group. If you don't have, then we'll always move to the next session. So thank you very much once again for coming, and let me hear from you. How much do you rate to this class?
Thank you very
In the
much.
scale of 1 to 10.
I've
How do you rate to this
more
class?
than 10, sir.
Kai, more than 10.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed the class.
Is there anybody that is there anybody that perfect?
No, you know, it's not about perfect here. It's not about perfect, but the
Yes.
more the way it was interesting. So, like for example, like
Thank you
yours
very
read
much.
some things and you understand it.
I get your point. Thank you very much. So, gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much.
Be sure something for us to see.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Hello?
You wanted to say something? Yes. Hello. Hi.
Well done, sir.
Go ahead. Well done.
Enjoy
Thank you.
your lecture. Your lecture is more like practical. You show us the desktop and then what is the main of the menus. And I really enjoy it, sir. I enjoy today's lecture, but it's long
Thank you
to
very
be
much.
because the network is not permitted me. I just joined about 30 minutes ago. But the lecture is okay now.
Don't
Fine.
worry.
I can rate you for
We are
7.5 over
recording.
10.
Thank you very much. You can always have the video to go through again and again. All right. So any other question or any observation? Any question, any observation, any contribution? So in the absence of questions, I will just end the session. Thank you so much, and I look forward to meeting you again in the next session, and have a good evening, all of you. Bye-bye.
Good night, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Good
Really
night.
appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. All right.